Once upon a time, in a small village nestled in the rolling hills of Africa, there lived a beautiful and kind-hearted girl named Oku. She had been in a long-distance relationship with her boyfriend, Ebuka, who had moved abroad to pursue his studies. Oku and Ebuka had been together since childhood, and their love had grown stronger with time. When Oku and Ebuka were little, they helped each other with their house chores. Oku was a very hardworking girl, and she often fetched water for Ebuka's mom and helped her clean the house and fetch firewood for her. Ebuka's mother is delighted with Oku, and she always talks about how happy she will be to have Oku as her daughter-in-law, which makes Oku very happy. Oku and Ebuka went to school together and did everything together. Even their classmates called them couples and often talked about how they would all gather to sew asibi for their wedding. One day while they were playing in the village square, one of Oku's neighbors came to call her and told her her mother was ill and had sent for her. Oku hurriedly went to her home, but by the time she got to her house, there were a lot of people gathered outside Oku's house and were crying. Oku went into her hut to find her mother lying lifeless on the floor. Oku could not believe her eyes. Her mother was the only one she had left in her family. Oku couldn't bear the loss of her mother. She broke down and started crying. Ebuka tried his best to console Oku, but she was uncontrollable, so Ebuka promised he would take care of her. After Oku's mother's burial, Ebuka often visits her and brings a lot of food and clothes for her. Oku was relieved by these kind gestures. One day Ebuka told Oku that he had decided to leave the village to continue his studies so he can work and make more money to take care of her and his ailing mother. Oku had always been supportive of Ebuka's goals, so she sold the only piece of land she had to enable Ebuka achieve his dreams. Ebuka left the village, and despite the distance between them, they would talk every day, sharing their dreams and aspirations. Oku waited patiently for his return. However, as time passed, Oku began to feel like she was waiting in vain. Ebuka's promises to return home were repeatedly broken, and their conversations became less frequent. Oku's letters and messages went unanswered, leaving her feeling ignored and unimportant. One day, Oku received a package from Ebuka, containing a beautiful traditional cloth and a letter. Her heart raced with excitement, hoping that the letter would finally contain the news she had been longing to hear, that Ebuka was returning home to her. But as she read the letter, her heart sank. Ebuka wrote about his new life abroad, his new friends, and his new interest. He barely mentioned Oku, and there was no mention of his return. It was as if she was an afterthought, a distant memory he had all but forgotten. Oku felt a deep pain in her heart, like a river that had been dammed and was now overflowing its banks. She realized that she had been living in a dream world, waiting for a man who had moved on with his life without her. With a heavy heart, Oku made the difficult decision to move on. She surrounded herself with her loving neighbors and friends, and began to rebuild her life. She learned to weave beautiful cloth and started a small business, becoming a successful entrepreneur in her own right. Years later, Ebuka returned to the village, a successful man with a foreign wife and children, and his boss who wanted to visit Africa. He sought out Oku, hoping to rekindle their lost love. But Oku, now a confident and independent woman, politely declined his advances. She had long moved on, and her heart now belonged to herself and her community. Ebuka's boss, who was also a foreigner, saw how beautiful, hardworking, and kind-hearted Oku was. He sought out Oku and they became friends. This made Ebuka very jealous, and he tried his best to separate his boss from Oku. The Ebuka's wife later learned of the relationship between Oku and Ebuka and decided to take her children and leave Ebuka behind, while his boss fell in love with Oku and decided to get married to her. Ebuka begged and cried to Oku to forgive him for not keeping his promises to her, but Oku told him it is too late as she is set to marry her foreign fiancé. Oku got married to her fiancé and left the village with him, leaving Ebuka in the village. Oku and her husband lived happily ever after. Thanks for watching.